You're listening to Later with Mo Kelly on demand from KFI AM 640.
Everybody knows about Chick-fil-A. If you say Chick-fil-A, you probably think of their food. Well, Chick-fil-A is going to start wanting you to think of them in an additional way. Chick-fil-A is going to start a streaming service with shows and movies. Now, from what I understand, Chick-fil-A has been working with a number of major production companies, movie studios, to create family-friendly shows, particularly reality ones. And it's also in talks to license and acquire content. Now, I know when you think about Chick-fil-A, you may not think about TV and movies, but I actually get this from a business standpoint. Hear me out. We know Disney is known for what? Like amusement parks, movies, TV, but they've also moved into the space of real estate and planned communities, diversifying their overall holdings. Remember Hallmark? Started out with gift cards, and all of a sudden they're doing what? TV and movies. Hallmark Channel. This is slightly different. I get that. Chick-fil-A is moving from or including entertainment with its food. But I kind of get it, if only because, I forgot the obvious one, Chicken Soup for the Soul. That was a book, an entertainment company, and then they wove into that Redbox TV and movies. Understandable. They just recently filed bankruptcy, but this is not unprecedented.
You're saying Chick TV might throw them a lifeline, maybe?
Possibly. Who knows? But I get what Chick-fil-A is doing because you get to leverage the brand loyalty. You know, it's like the name you know. What was the movie? I think it was The Perfect. What was the Eddie Murphy movie? The Distinguished Gentleman.
Yeah.
And it was like Jeff Johnson, the name you know. That was the campaign slogan. This is kind of like that. People who like Chick-fil-A really like Chick-fil-A.
And I don't get that. Can you explain to me? I've tried it a couple times. It's just a chicken sandwich. What's the big deal?
To me, it's not that big a deal.
Now watch me get flooded with emails from
you
people
will.
calling me an idiot.
No, you will.
Yeah.
But people, and this goes back to politics, people feel a personal affinity. I think part of it is the other things associated with Chick-fil-A, the Christian connection. That's part of it. Let's be honest.
So it's an identity thing.
It's an identity thing, yes.
Like owning a Tesla Cybertruck or something.
Possibly. I think that's one way you could look at it. But since there is that personal connection to the brand of Chick-fil-A, the thinking is it would carry over to other things connected to Chick-fil-A. If it's family-friendly TV shows and movies, which is not inconsistent with the overall perception of the brand of Chick-fil-A, or let's just say In-N-Out, for example. You think of In-N-Out, if you know the larger story of In-N-Out, that's also a Christian company. They put the Bible verses, I think, on the bottom of the cup. This is not new. So if In-N-Out were to expand their business into entertainment, those people who are really loyal to the brand of In-N-Out could be loyal to some other business entity.
You wouldn't want an In-N-Out TV, though, because people would assume the worst. Thank you.
Okay, I'll give you that one. In-N-Out after dark. Yeah, I got
exactly.
it. Okay.
Yeah.
Oh, my goodness. Yeah. I wonder if we'll have the squiggly line down the center.
There's another deep cut. Yeah.
You have to be a certain age to know that one.
There's half my childhood right there.
Look,
what are you watching?
I bet you Elmer has no idea what I'm talking about.
Really?
Not at all.
Oh, my goodness. Okay, let me do this very quickly.
Yeah, please. You got
Back in the day, when cable first started, there were these single channel cable systems. One was like On TV. One was Select TV.
Z channel.
Yeah.
Got
and
it.
they would scramble the signal if you didn't pay for it. Like you could turn on the channel, but if you didn't pay for it, they would scramble the signal and there would just be this squiggly line down the center. And it's like really bad reception on a broadcast TV.
Yeah,
Playboy had a channel too.
Yes. Yes.
I'm starting to remember.
And adolescents like me, the country over were turning our head upside down trying to figure out where the boobs were.
Yeah. That's what you always hope to see.
Hope to see. It's like, I saw one. There was one right there. That was a nipple.
Yeah.
Okay, I completely forgot about that, but yeah, you just triggered some
Core memory.
Core memory.
You don't know how hard we had it back then.
What did you say?
Well, it was rough. That's all I'm saying. It was difficult.
Okay, there we go. That's a better word.
Yes. Okay.
Yes. So
It felt like a win when you were like a kid. You were just like, yes, I got a boob.
you're getting over on the man. You're getting over on the system because my parents guarded our on TV like it was my dad's stack of Playboys, and he had those. So it was almost like they were trying to keep me away from the evil of the pornography. And it's like, it was never successful because there were times I'd come out there late at night because there was only one TV in the house, which had the on TV. So I'm looking at it late at night because they would show the skin flicks at night. So you're watching the squiggly line to hopefully you could see a little something. We're talking softcore porn. It wasn't porn. It was just basically nudity and simulated sex.
We had nothing.
Emmanuel After Dark.
Yes.
Oh, yeah.
Those were the best ones. Because you had like Emmanuel Goes to Paris. They had like 5 or 6 different Emmanuel.
Yeah. Well, and that was the classy stuff. There was lower rent stuff than that.
Yeah, because those had like an actual storyline, even though it was crappy, but it was way more.
Look, one of my favorite actresses.
Sylvia Crystal.
No, Marilyn Chambers.
Well, now, okay.
That was a deep cut.
Quite deep, in fact, yes.
Like deep ocean cut.
Not Marilyn, never mind. No.
Go ahead and say it.
No, I'm withdrawing from this.
What did you say? You're pulling out?
Look at the time.
It's later with Mo Kelly, KFI. And I know Chick-fil-A was like, we did not want to be part of that conversation. We're live everywhere on the iHeartRadio app. We'll talk Janet Jackson and tell you some true stories when I was working with Janet Jackson in just a moment.
You're listening to Later with Mo Kelly on demand from KFI AM 640.
And I love to hear from folks who can appreciate the music stories that I get to tell. As we get older, the only thing we have of value are the stories and memories that we have to share. And there's a story which is in the news where Janet Jackson has announced her Las Vegas residency. And she says it's going to be a lot of fun. 5-time Grammy Award-winning superstar announced her residency, which says to me that she's finally getting her flowers. When you get to Las Vegas, that is where you get to just finish out your career. I know she was on tour, but this is where, you get to stay for as long as you can bring in the fans, and she'll probably bring in the fans for many years. But it got me thinking about my time working at Virgin Records, and at the time it was in Beverly Hills, and I was working as a manager of promotion, and we were responsible for her Velvet Rope tour and album. That song you heard, I Get Lonely, is from the Velvet Rope album. And joining me on the line right now is one of my closest friends in the business. He's a former Marine. He worked security for Virgin Records and has a lot of the same stories as I do. And I'd love to bring him on for story time. Larry Pitkin, LP, as we call him. And he joins me right now. LP, how you doing, sir?
I'm great. Fantastic.
And just correct me if I'm wrong. I may misremember some things. You have worked security for the entertainment industry, not just music industry, for the better part of 30 years?
That is right. I cut my teeth at Virgin, though. That was my experience. That's where I learned how to really do what I do now, was with the craziness at the record label, that's for sure.
And you also worked for, was it LA Port Authority? You worked in law enforcement.
I worked for Sierra Madre Police Department.
Okay. All right. See, I get some things wrong every now and then. But
That's fine.
But the point is, you and I had a level of access that not everyone else would have when it would come to Janet Jackson. You weren't guarding her, but you were working as a bodyguard for the top executive in Virgin Urban Music at the time, correct?
Yes, including your boss. It's tough for him.
Yep. Do you remember when we were hanging out with Janet? There were 2 meetings. It was the first time where they did the the album release party for just the DJs, and they had Renee Elizondo, her
That's right.
husband at the time, come in and give a world premiere preview just like the LA area DJs. Do you remember that?
I sure do, very vividly. Yep.
And we were so tickled to be able to hear all the music just like that song before anyone else in the world. And also there was a time a few weeks later, if I'm not mistaken, where we had the official music industry album release party of that album. And I can't remember if it was at her house or one of her houses, or there was just a mansion that was rented for that. And we had all the staff up there, and she went around to everyone and personally shook everyone's hands, spoke, had time for dozens and dozens of people, and expressed her just gratitude at how hard we were working. Do you remember that night?
I do remember that night, but if I can, the first time I really ever met her was when we had an album release party. And she was very humble, and she came to me and she said, I just wanted to say hi and introduce myself. And I was like, I know who you are.
Right, introduce myself.
I'm like, hey, I'm nobody. And she says, oh, well, I always see you with, and she mentioned my boss's name. So you got to be important somewhere. And so I was like, wow, here this person, this multi-platinum artist has done all these things, and here she's going to come and recognize me. But another story about that album release party, we had everybody there. I think Curtis Blow was there. We had some people there. And I remember Renee was playing the album, and somebody said to him about, who's the boss in the family. And I'll never forget this. He says, I wear the pants in the family, but Janet buys them.
That's not untrue. It's not
No, that
untrue.
is. That's probably the most truthful thing I heard that night, probably. But yeah,
There are a few people that I can honestly say that I do not have a negative word to say about. And I would never presume to know Janet Jackson. I would never presume that. But I've been around her, and you've been around her enough times to have a real sense of who she is as a person. Because back then it's pre-social media. So it wasn't like you didn't have to worry about camera phones. We weren't allowed to have cameras. But it wasn't like you had to worry about... No, we didn't sign an NDA. It wasn't like we were going to be able to tell anybody anything about anything. So we got a real sense of who she was, just in her natural habitat, as they say. One of the nicest people I think I've ever met in this business. And there are a lot of a-holes in this business.
Oh, sure. We could do a whole show on that. The thing about Janet, though, her and Mr. B, they really got along really well. And she even said that, he reminded her of one of her brothers. And, for someone to say that, you're on the same level as a family member, I don't know if Eric was really that great of a guy. I think he is, but, it just kind of showed her humbleness and her humanity towards everybody that helped her with her project. She didn't forget who really did all the hard work.
Well, I'm going to go ahead and say the person's name so people know to whom you're referring. When you say Mr. B, that's Eric Brooks, who was the senior vice president of urban music at the time.
Correct.
But we had the luxury, I would say, and the privilege to have a level of access that a lot of people did not have at that time. And I know that you probably have other stories. Did you come with me? And Tawala Sharp may remember this. He's doing something, but I know he can hear me. I had the privilege of being able to take her to KKBT for a radio day.
I don't remember that in particular. If Eric was with her, then I was probably there. But I really don't. During that time, I was doing a lot of people at different radio stations. I've been there to that radio station many times, but to put that one in I have no independent recollection of being with her at that.
Okay. I got so lucky because Mark Boyd, one of my mentors, may rest in peace. For some reason, I think he was out of town because it fell to me, and I got the privilege. It's like, okay, you got to go with Janet today over to KKBT, which was at the time the #1 urban station in LA. And I got to walk in with Janet Jackson, and I was like the man because they were doing all the pictures. And I had to handle all that. And Janet was looking at me, it's like, where do you want me to go next? I said, you're asking me? Yeah. Like I'm somebody? Yeah. But and she was very soft spoken. She never spoke higher than a whisper. She was just one of those people where she understood that she was a super celebrity, but she did not present herself in that way ever. Not any time I was around her. Never. I can't speak for you.
I have to say the same thing. And, a lot of celebrities, high-profile people, they get this attitude. And what I've found, in my experience of working with people like that is that the more powerful they are and the more fans they have and more recognition they have, they seem to be a little bit more humble. But out of all of the people I've ever been with that are on that level with her, she was the most normal person to be around. She was always thankful, and you really felt that she appreciated everything you were doing with her project.
And that doesn't seem like that's the case with superstars today at all.
Well, the people that I work with now, they're people I work with are a lot older now, but yeah, in general, a lot of people now are still, they're out of, I'm not going to mention any names, but yeah, they're out of control, and it's embarrassing to be seen with them, to be quite honest with you.
Well, I got to run, LP, but I appreciate you co-signing some of these stories so they know I'm not making it up.
No, when you're talking stuff on your show and you're talking about times I was around, I'm yelling at the radio like, yeah, that's how it is. That's the way it was.
Boy, we've had some moments, have we not?
It was a good time. We had a great time. We were right at the pinnacle peak of hip hop at the time, and I'm going to tell you right now, that hip-hop experience I had, that's what's made my career to this day, really. All the experience I got then.
And we've been friends ever since. I love you, brother.
Sure. I love you too, my man. You bet.
We'll talk soon.
Yeah.
It's Later with Mo Kelly, KFI AM 640. We're live everywhere on the iHeartRadio app. And we have some new information talking about parties at the Intuit Dome, possibly, that may go into the morning. That's next.
You're listening to Later with Mo Kelly on demand from KFI AM 640.
The Intuit Dome, there's been a lot of discussion about its importance to the community, what it's going to mean for concerts and obviously the Clippers. But did you know, thanks to a bill quietly passed in the California Senate earlier this week, an exclusive venue in the Intuit Dome will able to have parties until 4 a.m. AB 3206 says that alcoholic beverages sales to occur between 2 a.m. and 4 a.m. upon the on-sale licensed premises operated in a fully enclosed arena with a seating capacity of at least 18,000 seats located in the city of Inglewood. And I quote, now for folks, Elmer, you're going to know where I'm going with this. For folks in California, we don't know anything about an after-hours set. If you were in New York, this is typical. You can go to a club at 2, 3 in the morning and come out, when the sun comes up. That's an East Coast thing. We're not used to that here on the West Coast. Mark, you're nodding your head. You know a little something about this, right?
I'd be dead. I would be dead. I almost took a job with Comedy Central right out of grad school in New York, and I can't even imagine. I would be long in the ground by now. And so, especially when you combine a later last call with a sporting event, what could possibly go wrong?
Well, it's not. It was loosely enforced back in the 80s during the Showtime era of the Lakers. Uh-huh. There was this place called the Forum Club, which was at the Forum.
Well, did they depict that in that HBO show, Winning Time?
Yes, yeah, and it's accurate. It is accurate. I didn't get to go to it during the heyday because I was only a teenager.
How accurate was Jerry Buss's hair in Winning Time?
According to Jeannie Buss, she felt that she was watching her dad. That's how accurate John C. Reilly's performance was.
It was a terrific show, by the way.
Terrific show, and most of it they got right from what I know about the Lakers, from what I remember about that storyline and published accounts. And I did get to go to the Forum Club on a couple of occasions. Once I was underage, and because my cousin went to college, and back then they had junior varsity college basketball teams in the 80s. He went to UNC, and he played with James Worthy. And so I was about maybe 15 years old. And he came out to California, my cousin. He said, hey, let's go to the Laker game. I'll introduce you to James Worthy. True story. I can't remember who they were even playing. I was just so over the moon to be able to meet James Worthy. So he took me down to meet James Worthy after the game, and he had showered and everything. So all the players were coming out, and the security is very different back then. Very different. So you had a chance to really go up and meet them. It was right outside the Forum Club. And so I got to meet James Worthy. They called him the Stick Man. That was his nickname in college. And I just remember he had these huge hands. James Worthy's 6'8". Now I'm 4'2" at the time. Got to meet James Worthy, but then afterwards we hung out in the Forum Club for a little bit because that's where all the Lakers would go after the game. And then you get to see all the Lakers. And it was a different time. And I'm quite sure you couldn't sell alcohol until 4 a.m. You couldn't have minors in there. But I was up in there and they were selling alcohol. And I know my mother's like, "Where's my son?" But I was with my cousin who was like in his late 20s. He was about the same age, obviously, as James Worthy. So this would be reminiscent. The whole point of this is it would be reminiscent of the Forum Club, where you have NBA players, you'd have stars, you'd have all sorts of notable people who would come and be able to party until the wee hours of the morning. This could be huge for the Clippers and the Intuit Dome. That's the point.
I think this can be a huge problem.
Yes.
For Inglewood and for the city.
You mean another problem?
Unfortunately, because we have another level of crime and violence in Los Angeles. And you and I, Mo, we both know what happens to individuals who are caught slipping, leaving a club 4 o'clock in the morning. This is going to be a target for all these would-be criminals who are carjacking, taking watches, whatever.
Not my problem. Not my problem. Look, I just want to wait for the headlines because you're going to have all these drunk people leaving the club at 4:30 in the morning who are not going to use Uber. I'm just waiting for the people to start losing their jobs and their careers.
It's coming.
Oh, it's absolutely coming.
You could also, just to play devil's advocate here, look at the situation in the UK where their last call is like 10 at night and people binge drink like crazy because they want to get in as many as they can. And they absolutely go berserk and have much worse sports hooliganism than we do.
We do, but we can't have nice things. We just don't know how to act. It may not be to the extent of what happens in the UK, but there is something to be said for not allowing people to drink until 3, 4 in the morning in an area that doesn't have real public transportation. In other words, in New York, you can catch a train, and I know Elmer will back this up. You can get a train anywhere in New York.
True.
Anywhere. True. We don't have that. And these folks, even though we got Uber now, which helps, and Lyft, they're going to get in their car and they're going to do something stupid. Because why? It's 4 in the morning and they're not going to be waiting out there, let's say during the basketball season in the winter, waiting for an Uber or Lyft.
America, we can't have nice things.
Oh, you gotta copyright that.
Yeah, that's a commercial right there.
It's story time tonight. All my great stories are coming out tonight. KFI AM 640, we're live everywhere in the iHeartRadio app.
You're listening to Later with Mo Kelly on demand from KFI AM 640.
And before we get out of here, I had a friend, one of the loyal listeners, inbox me on Instagram at Later with Mo Kelly and sent over this message. Now, Tuala, you don't know what I'm getting ready to read.
Nope.
But I'm going to read it. I'm going to briefly respond, and then I want you to respond because we're all about the truth here. This guy on Twitter, so it had to be sent to me, the Dark Lord 76 said the following. So if you're listening, the Dark Lord 76, I'm getting ready to correct you. Quote from the Dark Lord: I find it interesting how KFI AM 640, it's covering nearly every last bit of the DNC, but only had snippets of the RNC. I wonder why that is. I go first, then you go, okay? Number one, that is 100% untrue. We actually had more of the RNC, at least on this show. Can't speak for other shows. We played every single speech of every speaker in the first hour, which led up to the end of the RNC each night. Here are the only two differences. We played less of the DNC. Now, the DNC started on Monday as opposed to Tuesday with the RNC, so that may be part of the reason why you may have felt it was longer. But we played less of the DNC. We skipped over a lot of the speeches in the DNC. And in fact, when it came down to the vice presidential and presidential nominees, we took both political parties' nominees' speeches uninterrupted, blew out the commercial breaks. And in fact, J.D. Vance's speech was longer than Tim Walz, and Donald Trump's hour-and-a-half speech was longer than Kamala Harris's. So for those who may be of the opinion that there was some sort of favoritism shown to the DNC, that is factually untrue. We have the podcast to prove it. Now, you may say, well, why is it Gary and Shannon only went to the DNC? Well, we only had a sponsor for the DNC. If someone had stepped up and sponsored a broadcast of the RNC, would have had a broadcast there. So if you think that some sort of favoritism was shown to the DNC, that is factually untrue, and we have all the audio to prove it.
I find it interesting that the Dark Lord obviously doesn't listen to KFI. And if the Dark Lord does, the Dark Lord only listens selectively. And maybe the Dark Lord only listened to a couple of the DNC segments and missed the entire week where you covered the entirety of the RNC, top to bottom. Literally gave maybe a third of the, not even a third of the show, maybe a third of the last hour of the show to any other content. Every single day of the DNC, there were literally only snippets of people played, and that was only towards the end.
We can tell. Look, 4 minutes of maybe Hillary Clinton.
Yep.
We took a few minutes of Ashley Biden leading into Joe Biden.
Yep.
And we had a conversation about this with station management. Hey, we want to listen to presidents and former presidents. That was the only reason why we played Biden and some of Obama. We didn't play all of his speech.
No, did not play all of his speech. Only played about a 5-minute segment of Michelle Obama. Skipped every other speaker, every other person. Did not play Pelosi. Didn't play Newsom. Didn't play
Clinton.
Buttigieg. No one. Okay, we didn't play anyone. Okay, and not only that, both of the Democratic vice president and the presidential nominee, they were both very, very short. Okay, outside of that, most of the show has been dedicated to thought and analysis of. But again, as you say time and time again, people only hear what they want to hear.
Look, on this show, we tell the truth. And that was sent to me, so I felt compelled to respond to it. If you're going to lie and I catch you lying, I'm going to call you out. We got podcasts. This is not a debate. It's not like, well, I heard. No, you didn't. Well, I don't care. Okay. We covered both parties equally, fairly, and without any bias. I did not tell you what I felt about the speeches. I didn't go into why I thought this was a good speech or a bad speech. I talked about what may have been missed or what was omitted, something to look for in the coming days, but no favoritism was shown. That's not what we do. This is not advocacy radio. And if you want to allege some sort of conspiracy of favoritism between the two parties, not on this show.
Or at least have your facts straight.
Right.
Yeah. As the kids say, we have the receipts.
Oh!
Mic drop.
The Dark Lord has a busy schedule. And he can't listen constantly. A Dark Lord has things to get done.
But it was more important to impugn the integrity because I'm looking at the message and it was during our show. So I'm thinking he's talking about us and the intimation and supposition that there must be some sort of favoritism because this guy's a Democrat or somehow is a lefty liberal, tree hugger.
I love when you have that tone of I find it interesting. That's almost like you want to get the taste slapped out your mouth.
Yeah.
Like
Don't say stuff that's just patently untrue. That's not what we do here. And if you want to accuse somebody of something, you better have the facts to back it up. Like Stephen said, you better have the receipts because all our audio is recorded.
And see, this is why I deleted my Twitter account this evening.
Well, this was sent to me because I was just fine minding my own business.
They probably couldn't have sent it to me because I literally after I saw the comments that were being made about Governor Walz's son and his reaction. I said, you know what? That's it. I refuse to ever look at this app again. So that's probably why they had to send it by way of someone else saying, hey, man, this is what someone just asked me about you.
And I appreciate that because obviously the person had listened to the show and said, Mo, what this can't be true. You know, look, we'll see y'all tomorrow. And tomorrow's Friday. So I think we should have some fun tomorrow. Maybe give away some prizes. talk movies, talk about Tawala's new car. We didn't get a chance to talk about that tonight.
Oh, yeah.
He's actually wearing a collared shirt. I don't remember the last time I saw Tawala in a collared shirt. I think he was at my wedding. That was the last time I saw him in a collared shirt. No exaggeration.
Making me nervous.
Oh, man.
Am I lying?
No.
I noticed it right away.
He usually has a hoodie on or something.
Yeah.
I'm the one who's usually in a collared shirt.
I had to do it.
We'll see you all tomorrow. KFI AM 640. We're live everywhere on the iHeartRadio app.
More informing, more engaging, more stimulating. KFI.
And KOST HD2.
Los Angeles, Orange County.
Live everywhere on the iHeartRadio.